Karen really thought of herself as a drummer.
Is that right?
Which is amazing to me. Didn't she know how well she sang?
She did, but I'd heard stories through the years that Bing Crosby always thought of himself as a golfer who sang. Karen, for as much as she loved to sing, and it was inborn, obviously.
They thought she had it all, but fame slowly killed her. Karen Carpenter's haunting story is a chilling reminder of how the spotlight can hide deep suffering. With a voice that mesmerized the world and a soft, almost fragile presence, no one saw the silent pain behind her smile. From a young age, she was pushed, pressured, and misunderstood. Now, her brother is finally revealing the truth, the cries for help that everyone ignored. What really happened to Karen Carpenter, and what secrets has her brother just confirmed? Join us as we explore the finally confirmed rumors about Karen Carpenter's life. A dysfunctional family. Karen Carpenter was born during a time when America was still recovering from the Second World War. Families were trying to build stable lives, and traditional values ruled most homes. On the surface, the Carpenters seemed like a typical middle-class family, with a working father, a stay-at-home mother, and 2 children. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. Her parents, Agnes and Harold Carpenter, ran a strict household. Her mother was emotionally distant and clearly favored Karen's older brother, Richard. Due to this obvious favoritism, Karen often felt invisible. She once said her mother never hugged her or told her she was proud. Her father, who had grown up in boarding schools in the United Kingdom after being born in China to missionaries, was quiet and detached. The home was cold, not in temperature but in love and comfort. Richard, the family's golden child, was a piano prodigy. From a young age, he received constant praise and support. Karen, meanwhile, was left to find her own way. She loved dancing, especially ballet and tap, and enjoyed playing softball in the street. She was full of energy and quietly hopeful that someone might notice her too. In the early 1960s, the family moved to Downey, California for Harold's new job. The move was not convenient, but Karen and Richard adapted quickly. Karen started high school there at a younger age than most of her classmates. She also joined the school band just to skip gym class. At first, she was given a glockenspiel, an instrument she disliked, but when she saw a friend playing the drums, she was fascinated, and that was the beginning of a passion. Smitten, Karen begged her parents for a drum kit. However, they were not thrilled by the idea. Eventually, to Karen's delight, a family friend convinced them to buy one. It cost $300, which was considered a lot of money back then. Fortunately, Karen didn't let the money go to waste. She practiced every day, teaching herself how to play. She picked up advanced rhythms quickly and became obsessed with learning different drumming techniques. Drumming gave her a sense of purpose, something that was just hers. Even though she was shy, Karen loved music. When she played, all her nervousness faded. The stage became a place where she could finally be seen. Music gave her a voice when her home life didn't. When she graduated from high school in 1967, she enrolled as a music major at Long Beach State. There, she sang in the college choir with her brother. She started voice lessons with Frank Pooler, the choir director. He helped her develop a full 3-octave range and said, Karen was a born pop singer. As a teenager, Karen had a remarkable voice. Clear, emotional, and unforgettable. But behind all that talent was a girl raised in a home where love had conditions, attention had limits, and feelings were often silenced. Her journey from a mostly neglected teenager to a star is quite intriguing. How did she step out of the shadows that threatened to drown her talents? Stepping out of the shadows. When Karen Carpenter signed her first major recording contract with her brother Richard, she didn't take center stage immediately. She started out behind a drum kit, singing lead vocals from her seat while keeping time. She handled most of the singing on their debut album, while Richard took on songwriting and backing vocals. A few tracks had them singing in unison, and even then, her voice stood out, warm, controlled, and unmistakable. Karen wasn't just a drummer or a singer. She played bass on several songs and tackled tricky rhythms that showed off her musical instincts. One track used a 5-beat time signature, and another layered multiple drum parts to sound like a full marching band. Still, their early music didn't catch fire right away. Their first single, A reimagined version of a Beatles tune made a modest chart appearance, but everything changed with their second album. 2 singles from that release shot straight to the top of the charts, and suddenly, Karen's voice was everywhere, on radios, in homes, and etched into pop history. Live shows, however, presented a challenge. Karen was petite, and from behind her drums, audiences struggled to see her. Critics pointed it out, saying the band lacked a visual focus on stage. Richard and their manager knew they had to make a change. They encouraged Karen to step out front and sing at the microphone, while another drummer played behind her. At first, she hated it. The drums had been her shield, her comfort zone. Singing without them made her feel exposed, but gradually she found her footing and her confidence. As the years passed, she focused more on singing and less on drumming, but she didn't give it up entirely. During concerts, she often returned to the drums for special moments, moving around the stage to different setups, showing fans that rhythm was still in her bones. Her voice, often recorded with a close microphone to catch every tiny inflection, became her signature. She had a wide vocal range, but her deeper notes resonated with people. Karen never stopped thinking of herself as a drummer who happened to sing. She loved her Ludwig drums, especially her favorite snare. On some albums, she played nearly every drum part. On others, top session musicians were brought in to help polish the sound. She was fine with that. She wanted the best for the music. In the mid-70s, the Carpenters' schedule slowed down. Richard battled substance dependence, and their touring stopped. Still, Karen kept performing when she could. She sang a televised duet with Ella Fitzgerald and helped promote their final studio album. However, she was only beginning. Her path as a musician was about to take a bold turn. So what major step did she take next? The next big thing. Karen's solo journey began quietly, long before it was fully recognized. In the late 60s, she released her first solo single, Looking for Love, with I'll Be Yours on the B-side. The record came out under the small Magic Lamp label Joe Osborne ran. It was a modest beginning. Only 500 copies were pressed before the label folded. Still, it hinted at Karen's early desire to explore music beyond the Carpenters.
And she's been going strong ever since. Incidentally, she's a fine singer, too, you're going to find out.
A more serious attempt at solo work came more than a decade later. While her brother Richard took time off to recover from substance dependency, Karen headed to New York City. She teamed up with legendary producer Phil Ramone to record a full solo album there. This was her chance to experiment and push past the familiar sound that had defined the Carpenters. The music she recorded leaned into the late 70s style, upbeat, dance-influenced tracks with a touch of disco. The lyrics carried a more adult tone, and the production gave space to Karen's higher vocal range, showing a side of her voice that often stayed in the background during Carpenter's recordings. This new sound reflected a personal shift. Karen wasn't simply recording new music, but stepping into her own creative space. But when the album was finished and played for A&M Records and Richard, the response was underwhelming. The label's co-founder, Herb Alpert, decided not to release it, even after producer Quincy Jones tried to advocate for a remix and release. Instead, the album was shelved, and the label hit Karen with a $400,000 charge for the recording costs. That money was to be deducted from the Carpenters' future royalties. From there on, the world began to seek her out, and what should have been a dream come true became a disaster. What went wrong? No one to lean on. After taking that major leap, Karen Carpenter seemed to live in the spotlight, but much of her real story played out quietly behind closed doors. At home, she was seen more as the younger sibling than a future star. Even after success found her, she continued living with her parents into her mid-20s, caught between fame and a household that never quite treated her like the center of it all. Eventually, she carved out her own space, literally. She bought 2 apartments in Century City and merged them into one. Inside, it was her world. Karen loved collecting Disney memorabilia and knew baseball stats better than most sports reporters. As a kid, she'd beat the boys in street games. As an adult, she pitched on a celebrity softball team, unfazed by the cameras or the crowds. Despite being a trailblazing female drummer in a male-dominated industry, Karen's personal views leaned traditional. She talked openly about wanting to cook for her future husband and create a home life away from the chaos of show business.
Right when, Close You came out and Make It With You by Bread.
But relationships were complicated. Fame made dating hard, and constant touring didn't help. She once said she'd probably never marry because she could never be in one place long enough to make it work. Still, Karen wanted the same thing most people do: love, family, stability. She dated some high-profile names: actors, musicians, producers. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, she married a man named Tom Burris, a real estate developer who was older, divorced, and had a teenage son. The wedding was beautiful. She recorded a special song just for the ceremony, and it played as guests looked on, unaware of what lay ahead. The honeymoon phase didn't last. Karen dreamed of having children, but Burris had made that impossible. He had undergone a procedure to prevent it and refused to reverse it. The gap between them widened. On top of that, he was financially reckless, borrowing large sums from her while living a lifestyle far beyond his means. Close friends later said the marriage crushed her spirit. They separated quietly, just 2 months after she rewrote her will, leaving him the house but giving the rest to her family. She walked away for good. The divorce papers were filed while she was in the hospital, dealing with her own health issues. But while the world saw her come out of her battles like she was tough, Karen was battling something worse. Hidden behind her beautiful smile, no one would have suspected. What was she going through? A downward trail. Karen Carpenter's journey with her weight began when she was still in high school. Motivated to stay healthy, she followed the Stillman diet under her doctor's supervision, which involved eating lean foods and drinking plenty of water while cutting out fatty foods. This helped her maintain a weight of 120 pounds for several years. However, as her career with the Carpenters blossomed and her public life became more prominent, she began to feel self-conscious about her appearance. After seeing a concert photo where she thought her clothes made her look heavy, Karen decided to make a change. She hired a personal trainer who suggested a new workout and diet plan, but it didn't give her the results she hoped for. Instead of feeling lighter, she felt bulkier from the muscle gain. Frustrated, she parted ways with the trainer and decided to manage her weight on her own. Karen turned to using exercise equipment and counting calories to try and get the results she desired. In the process, she lost about 20 pounds, but she wasn't satisfied and hoped to lose another 5 pounds. Her eating habits also started to shift. When dining out, she would often push food around her plate, offering taste to others in an effort to reduce how much she ate. But over time, her weight dropped significantly, and by the mid-1970s she weighed only 91 pounds. But with all this attention, she became obsessed with the idea of looking a certain way. The pressure to be thin took over her life, and she began to follow very strict diets. Karen started to eat less and less. She barely ate anything at all, often surviving on just dry toast and small salads. Her obsession with being thin pushed her to extreme measures, and by 1975, her weight had dropped dangerously low to just 90 pounds. At this time, Karen's health began to suffer greatly. Her brother Richard remembered a time when the Carpenters had to cancel their upcoming tours in Japan and Europe because Karen had collapsed during a performance in Las Vegas. Her body was no longer able to handle the stress of both the demanding career and the starvation. Despite how sick she was feeling, Karen kept performing. She continued to sing and drum for the Carpenters, trying to hide the truth about how much she was suffering. The more people expected of her, the harder it became for her to manage the pressure. Her appearance became a topic of concern among fans, many of whom expressed their worries in letters to Karen and Richard, her brother. While fans noticed her thin frame, Karen never admitted to suffering from an eating disorder. When asked about anorexia, she responded that she was simply tired and didn't go into detail.
Well, the intonation was a little bit out, or the pacing wasn't right. Never. It's just, Her
family and friends knew something was wrong, but they weren't sure how to help. Richard Carpenter later admitted that he had noticed her unhealthy dieting habits, but didn't understand the severity of the situation. In 1981, Karen reached a point where she could no longer hide the problem. She confided in Richard and told him she needed help. She contacted Cherry Boone, who had recovered from anorexia, and reached out to her doctor in hopes of finding a solution. However, the doctor explained that recovery from anorexia could take years, not just weeks or months. In search of help, Karen turned to psychotherapist Stephen Levenkron in New York City. While she hoped for quick progress, her struggles continued. Karen also began to rely on medications to speed up her metabolism, including thyroid replacement drugs under a false name. She continued using laxatives to control her weight, sometimes taking up to 90 tablets per night. Despite her efforts to recover, her condition worsened. She eventually dropped to a dangerously low weight of 77 pounds and experienced dizziness and irregular heartbeats. Her body was suffering from the long-term effects of her eating disorder. In 1982, Karen was hospitalized and placed on intravenous nutrition. The treatment helped her regain some weight, but it also put stress on her heart, which had been weakened by years of malnutrition. From that point on, she managed to keep her weight stable, but the damage caused by her eating disorder was permanent. But the survival patterns slowly became an addiction that spiraled into obsessions, killing her slowly till she had nothing else to give. What was the final straw for Karen? Her final moments. Karen Carpenter moved back to California in November 1982 with a sense of purpose. She was determined to revive her career and begin working on a new album with her brother Richard. As she re-entered the music scene, she felt hopeful about the future. On December 17, 1982, Karen performed for the last time, singing Christmas carols for her godchildren, their classmates, and other friends at the Buckley School in Sherman Oaks. It was a peaceful, joyful moment, marking the end of an era. Her final public appearance occurred on January 11, 1983, at a special gathering of past Grammy Award winners celebrating the 25th anniversary of the awards show. While she appeared frail and tired, those who saw her recalled how lively and upbeat she still seemed.
I was thinking of cutting an album, featuring my type of...
Dionne Warwick, a close friend, remembered Karen exclaiming, "Look at me, I've got an ass," showing that Karen still had her vibrant spirit despite the struggles she had faced. In addition to her musical projects, Karen had begun writing songs for the first time and expressed to Warwick that she had a lot of life left to live. On February 1, 1983, Karen had one last conversation with Richard. They discussed their future plans, including potential tours for the Carpenters. 3 days later, on February 4th, she was scheduled to finalize her divorce. However, that morning, after waking up, Karen collapsed in her parents' home. She was found unconscious in a walk-in closet, and paramedics discovered she was in cardiac arrest with her heart beating just once every 10 seconds. She was quickly rushed to Downey Community Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at just 32 years old. Her funeral was held on February 8, 1983, at Downey United Methodist Church, with nearly 1,000 mourners in attendance. Among those present were friends like Dionne Warwick, Dorothy Hamill, Olivia Newton-John, and Petula Clark. Her estranged husband, Thomas Burris, placed his wedding ring into her casket. Karen was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Cypress, California. In 2003, her remains, along with those of her parents, were relocated to a private mausoleum at Pierce Brothers Valley Oaks Memorial Park in Westlake Village. An autopsy released shortly after Karen's death revealed that the cause of death was emetine cardiotoxicity, which was linked to her long struggle with anorexia nervosa. It was reported that her blood sugar level was dangerously high, over 10 times the normal range.
The man who heard your recording and then introduced you to the world, Mr. Jack Doherty.
Karen's death was a devastating loss, one that the entertainment industry might never get over. How did her quiet pain go unnoticed by those who were supposed to love her the most? And when the world lost such a tender, radiant soul, how did it grieve the light it never truly saw fading? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.